Right now is sit in the studio with one of the most beloved athletes in the history of this city.
That was a topic earlier this year, right?
I remember.
The most beloved athlete in Detroit.
And if there's a guy more beloved than our next guest, it's a very short list, and it includes maybe Steve Yzerman, maybe Barry Sanders, and it may be a three-way tie for first. The Hall of Famer Alan Trammell is here on 97.1 The Ticket. Tram, good morning. It's an honor to see you, honor to have you here. Thanks for the time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I can tell you this, that the stories do get better when you get older. I can tell you that. But I appreciate the compliment. Obviously, this is a special place for me, and always very special to come home. And you know what? This weekend we're reminiscing and we're talking, some old stories, but they never get old. They really don't. Winning and seeing your old teammates never gets old.
I asked this to Jack, and he said everybody. I'm going to ask you to be more specific. Is there one player who you're going to see this weekend who you haven't seen in a really long time that you're looking forward to seeing the most?
Chet Lemon. Chet Lemon will be here on Saturday. And, he's a busy man. He's
youth baseball, right?
Youth baseball, yes, the juice. And he's been doing this for quite a while, but he was not here at the 30th. But he is coming for the 35th, and I think there'd be a lot of guys that would say Chet because, again, we have not seen him for a while.
And we also asked Jack this question the other day, and that is, when did you know about the 84 team? He said, 83, I think, how good 84 was going to be.
Because he said you guys took care of Baltimore so easily in 83.
Well, they ended up winning the World Championship. We were on their heels. We were chomping at the bit. It's easy to say that now, but we were getting ready, and you're really looking at 82 when Milwaukee won, and they got to the World Series. They won the American League, but we were neck and neck, and they beat us late in the season, and they got into the playoffs and then went to the World Series, lost to the Cardinals. But so we were kind of going through the baby steps, the growing pains. We had lost enough. We were starting to get a little ticked off. We were starting to mature. And going into spring training, I think we felt very good about our chances. Obviously, nobody could expect us, or we never expected. I mean, I call it like Nintendo-ish, 35-5, 17 in a row on the road. I mean, come on, you can't even dream that up.
No. And someone was saying earlier, our producer Tom, one of those losses was a 19-inning loss. Is that right? 35-5. So. Is that what you said? Yeah.
You know what?
It should have been 36-4, really.
Yeah. Well, just to fast forward this a little bit. Okay, we know we're 35-5, and we go up to Seattle. We actually set the American League record in Anaheim, and we got a standing ovation. So we're finishing the trip off by going up to Seattle, and at that time they were one of the worst teams in baseball, if not the worst team in baseball. And you know what happened? We got swept. I'm saying that's baseball.
That's baseball.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, you can't take anything for granted. And we went up there, and they whacked us 3 games, and we got humbled a little bit. And obviously we weren't going to continue at that pace. But I'll never forget that. But that's how it happened.
We're talking to Alan Trammell here on 97.1 The Ticket. It's the 35th celebration this weekend, starting tonight. There's a Q&A with Tram and Lou and our friend Dan Leach at the Big Cat Court before the game. And then tomorrow's the big festivities at 4:10. It's Sparky Anderson bobblehead night. Sparky, of course, passed away. We always debate the role of a manager in baseball and what he means. And some teams seem to kind of manage themselves. What did Sparky mean to that group of guys, especially young guys coming together? I mean, Gibby's talked a lot about it. What did Sparky mean to that team that year?
You made a good point right there, and I'm using that as far as in '84 we policed ourselves, but it was the prior years that Sparky had set the tone, and when he was the tough love and he mentored us. But then as we were in the 84-ish year, and we were getting off to the good start, there wasn't as much for him to do. He sometimes, like he would say, is that sign of a good manager is knowing when to stay out of the way. And so, we were rolling, and but I'm going to be honest with you, at least in my opinion, he meant a great deal. And there was no question that he was the captain of the ship. But again, prior to that, he had done more of his work to kind of mentor us to get to that point. And we knew how to play baseball. And I've said this many times, but I'm very appreciative that during our era, and I know you get caught up in your time, but we were taught how to play the game of baseball. And I'll Never forget that. Very appreciative.
Is that why? Because he was so good at mentoring you guys when you were young that when you got to a certain level, it was fine with you guys, but the few younger guys on there, like Howard Johnson, he allegedly didn't get along so well. Maybe that didn't translate.
There's true. So there's not a perfect, it's not a perfect world. It's not going to fit for everyone. And unfortunately, Hojo was not quite part of that group with the Lou and Jack and Gibby and myself and Dan and Rosie and Brookie, and I'm missing a few guys, but kind of that core. So Hojo kind of came in the next wave, and we were looking to win that year, and Hojo was just starting.
Right.
And Sparky didn't tolerate mistakes. Now, a few years before, we all made mistakes, and we were corrected. And so there was that tough love there. But, Hojo, unfortunately, in the World Series, even though he was a part of our team, and he's here this weekend, which I'm very glad to see Hojo, he wasn't part of the World Series part. Marty Castillo really played more third base during the series. So, but Sparky, I'm gonna fight this a little bit. They talked about Sparky not being good with young players, and I scratched my head and I'm chuckling. It's like, well, what were Jack and Lance and myself and Lou and Gibby? We were all young, and he took us and he molded us. So I just kind of chuckle at that because, again, there's no perfect world. It's not going to work for everyone, but I think he did a pretty damn good job.
We were talking earlier this morning about, favorite teams that have won championships here in Detroit. And one of the reasons 84 stands out is because you said 35-5. I sometimes, I didn't grow up in Michigan, but I liken your team to the 85 Bears. I thought that was the best team in the 80s, the 84 team. And so then the question obviously is, why wasn't there an 85 or an 86?
Yeah.
And the answer to that, I'm guessing, is going back to your original thing, is that's baseball, right?
It is, and it's hard. And you know what? One of the reasons why we didn't win was me. And
oh yeah, you were a real
honestly, I did not have the year. And if you think back, 5 days after we won the World Series, and this is just being truthful, I had a labrum tear, and I had hurt my shoulder right before the All-Star break, and so I labored somewhat. I had a labor tear, but I labored for the second half of the season. And so I was in and out of the lineup, and Sparky used to rotate the DH and things, but my arm was bothering me. And 5 days after the World Series, I had my shoulder scoped. You
were still World Series MVP.
I was, but my shoulder was bothering me, and I also had a knee issue that at the same time. So Dr. Andrews, this is going back into October of '84. Dr. Andrews,
whenever you
was
bring Dr.
just
Andrews
starting.
in, that's not good.
Yes, I had a labrum tear. So this is the middle of October. I have the surgery, and then I'm ready to go for the season. Now, I say that. I was a little behind in spring training, and I was ready for opening day, but my arm was not the same. I didn't play the way I was capable, and it took me a while to get that back. Had more the dead arm, and it just not so much that it hurt, but I was part of that. But probably the real reason is that Toronto was knocking on the door now. Boston was becoming good again, and the American League East was a beast.
There was a different team every year. But in 87, what you guys pulled off, and you, who, I'm not saying this because you're here, got ripped off for the MVP by George Bell, but kind of like maybe took the Twins for granted a little bit in the playoffs. Well, you should have won that. I remember covering that Metrodome was one of the loudest buildings.
It was.
It was sick.
You remember that. That's as loud as I've ever played in. No question about it. It's not, you know what? It took so much out of us. And again, this is going to sound like the excuse, and I don't want to take anything from the Twins because they beat us 4-1. It wasn't like, we were really, really close. They took it to us.
Right.
They got all the 2-out hits, and I remember the game one in the Metrodome. We had taken a 4-3 lead in the eighth, top of the eighth. And in the bottom of the eighth, there was a walk, and then there was a fly ball in left center that Gibby and Chet lost in the baggie at the Metrodome. And you guys all know about the Metrodome and the white. It's like a cloud up there, and it happens, and that happens. And it ended up they ended up getting 2 runs there, beat us 5-4 in game one. So you're thinking, if you can get game one, who knows? Can't play that what-if game. But I'm just stating what happened, and they ended up getting momentum. And because of the way the rules were back in those days, is that it rotated the World Series, American National. Right. They had the home field advantage against the Cardinals. They didn't have a good record going in. The Cardinals should have had the home field advantage. So they won all 4 games in the Metrodome.
Yep.
But again, I'm sounding like I'm
Right.
no. They earned it. They won. They only won 85 games that year. They did not deserve home field advantage that year. But that's just how the rules were at that particular time.
I've got a question.
You do.
When you meet with fans, what do you hear from them the most? I mean, are people just running up to you and thanking you because that team meant so much to so many people?
Yes. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, there's most of it obviously is compliments. I mean, a World Series, my gosh, what is there negative to say about that? But it's just a time in their life. They think back, where were you and where they were in their lives. And it means a lot. And you know, this now fast forwarding, you know, last year with Jack and I being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I really believe for me, it just makes me, it's a kind of a reward for the fans, because I think the fans, hey, I did want to get into the Hall of Fame, but I was going to be fine one way or another, regardless. But for us to be elected now, it's a reward for our fans who are, again, you know, going to get into the argument, which are the best.
Right.
Our fans are at the top. You know, whatever. We're one of the top sports cities in the United States. I'll take that to the bank.
He's Alan Trammell. He's a Hall of Famer. He's part of the 35th celebration this weekend. It all starts tonight before the Tigers take on the Nationals. There's a Q&A with Tram and Lou. It'll be at 5:45 at the Big Cat Court in the stadium. And then, of course, tomorrow, the 4:10 start at Sparky Anderson bobblehead, courtesy of Cooper Tires. First 10,000 fans. The gates open tomorrow at 2 o'clock, so you want to get down early for that one. And then Sunday at 1:10, I believe a guy named Max Scherzer's pitching in that game. If you'd like to ask a question of the great Alan Trammell, our phone number is 248-539-9797 or on the ticket text 97136.